First off, I'm a mom. I feel like that's my most important role that I have. I have a daughter who's 6 years old and a son who is 9. I'm also a wife. I've been married to my husband for 17 years. I taught elementary school for 14 years. And I am now, since my cancer diagnosis, an advocate for stage 4 breast cancer and try to raise as much funds as I can for Metaviber. If my friends described me, I think they would say that I'm funny. I like to joke around. I love to go shopping. I love to spend time with my family. And that, I don't know what else to say. That I'm a pretty determined person, and I've not let my I'm gonna start crying. I've not let my diagnosis stop me from doing a lot of things. I'm still living my life, for the most part, the way I did before I was diagnosed. 3 things that people probably don't know about me is that I am afraid of airplanes, and I've done a lot of flying lately, but every time the plane takes off, I'm terrified that it's going to come crashing down. Something else people probably don't know me is that I was an architecture major before I went into teaching. That lasted for a semester, and I decided that wasn't for me. And a third thing that people might not know about me is that I would love to go skydiving one day, but probably can't, or I'm assuming I can't because of the cancer that's in my bones. Okay, so when I was 36 years old, I was teaching elementary school and decided in 2015 to take a year off and stay at home with my daughter. She was 3 at the time. And 3 months after I resigned from my job, I found this little tiny hard knot way up underneath my right breast and went in the next day, and my gynecologist felt it, sent me in to have my first mammogram and ultrasound that afternoon. And I was told at the end of the ultrasound by a doctor that she thought I had cancer. And she said that she wanted me to come in the next day and have a biopsy, and that there was one lymph node that looked a little suspicious, and they were going to biopsy it too. So I went in, and 2 days after that, I received a phone call early in the morning on a Sunday, and I was told that I had cancer, had breast cancer, and it was in a lymph node, and that it was grade 3, it was aggressive, and that I needed to come in and meet with a nurse. And so I did, and we set up a breast MRI where I found out there were 7 tumors in my right breast. And then I went to talk to a breast surgeon about having a mastectomy, because at this point we didn't know if it had spread or not. That hadn't even been mentioned. And then when I saw an oncologist, he said he wanted to do a PET scan before I started chemo, just to make sure that it hadn't spread. And when I got the results of that PET scan, it showed that I had breast cancer in my bones in 5 places. And so I, 3 days later, was having surgery to have my ovaries removed, since my breast cancer is fed by estrogen. And I did not start chemo. Instead, I started taking an estrogen inhibitor, and still haven't had chemo to this day. It's my last option, I was told. But everything happened very quickly. In a matter of 2 weeks, I went from not having a clue that I had cancer, thinking I was healthy and normal, and 2 weeks later found out that I had stage 4 breast cancer. So when I was told about my diagnosis, and I found out that it was stage 4, I knew that there was no stage 5, and I knew that that meant that there wasn't a cure. And I became really depressed for a couple of months. I cried all the time, and I lost a lot of weight and just wasn't myself, obviously. Wasn't eating, I wasn't laughing, I didn't feel like I was being a good mom. And I started meeting people through Facebook that had stage 4 breast cancer and saw women that were living longer than the 3-year median life expectancy and people that lived less. And at some point, I just decided that, I'm going to die, and I can either die and be depressed and upset and not live my life, or I can still die on that same day and I can try to live instead. And I decided to do that. So I started not crying as much. I do cry every day, but I don't live there. I don't let it take over my life. And I do everything I used to do with my kids and try to be a good mom and wife and hang out with my friends and go on way more trips than I ever did before. And I want to make sure that I live while I can. So after my diagnosis, the relationships with my family have changed. My mom and I message each other, I love you, every single night at 9 o'clock. If my phone doesn't ding at 9, hers does, because we want to make sure that we say that every single day. And my mom and I have started going on trips together, and we make sure to have dinner at my parents' house every single Sunday night. We used to do that a long time ago, and then we started going to every other Sunday night. And then after I was diagnosed, I asked her if we could please do it every Sunday, because it's just, one of those little things that we want to make sure that we do. And my relationship with my kids, I've tried to keep it as normal as possible for them. For me, it's very different. When one of my children has a birthday, the way I think about it is obviously very different than how I used to. Or just some days when I brush my daughter's hair, or go to my son's baseball games, I always wonder about the future for them not having me there, and what am I going to miss out on. It's not just a normal occurrence like it is for most people to do these things with their kids. It's something that I don't take for granted. And I'm lucky that I'm getting to do what I'm getting to do right now, because things could be so much worse for me than they are. So I'm really trying to appreciate what I do get to do with them and the time I get to spend with them. And I got to see my daughter graduate from kindergarten, and I didn't know if that was going to happen for me or not. So for them, I don't talk about my disease. They know I have cancer. They know what it's called. The school that I used to teach at, they've raised money, they've made t-shirts. I don't want Cooper to not understand why, but I don't want him to understand too much either at 9 years old, and my daughter at 6. So I try to keep things normal for them, and sometimes I cry around them and they don't understand why. And sometimes they'll ask. I think they've kind of learned that mommy just does that sometimes. Just laying in bed with my daughter and putting her to bed at night, and just all sorts of things get to me now that used to not. So an average day for me would be sleeping in the morning a little bit, because I have such a hard time falling asleep at night. I normally don't go to bed until 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, my mind just won't shut off. So I typically get up around 9 or so in the morning, and I do have a part-time job right now, and so some days I work at a toy store, and I normally go in at 10 o'clock on the days that I work and work there until about 2, and then go home, and my kids come home from school when it is school. Since it's summer right now, it's a little bit different, but I just try to spend time with them, and we have baseball practice and gymnastics and laundry to do and dinner and just, the typical things that I think most families do. But then after I put my children to bed in the evening, I have kind of my alone time that's not always good time for me. I do a lot of thinking, and a lot of times it's not good thinking where my mind goes at night. And I don't know if it's because I've just put my kids to bed, and that's just kind of a time when I start, I don't know, I get more emotional in the evening for some reason. And a lot of nights I almost panic with some of the thoughts that I have. I think during the day I'm busy. I keep myself busy. And then when it's time for me to go to bed, my mind just goes to really dark places, and I think a lot about my future and my kids and worry about them. And I'll get up and check to see that the door's not locked, and I'm like, who's going to lock the door when I'm not here? It's not getting locked. My kids inspire me, and they push me to not let this affect me as much as it could, because more than likely I'm only going to get to be their mom for a short amount of time. And I want that time to be full of laughter and good memories. And I don't want them just to see me sad all the time. And they motivate me and inspire me to want to raise money. I have the BRCA2 mutation, and that increases the chances of both of my children having it. If they have it, it increases their chances for several types of cancer. And so I have to do everything I can now so that I know when I die that I tried as much as I could to make their life better in the future, to raise money for research, and to try to get people to understand about this disease.